Well, if this isn't bottom for the housing market, look out. New numbers today from the Commerce Department paint a dismal picture. Construction of new homes in October fell 4.5%, sinking to a new record low, one that goes back decades. One economist said right now, housing is just a plain old disaster area. So how low will housing go? Here to score it for us is real estate expert Dani Babb, author of The Accidental Landlord. In Miami, real estate attorney and developer Dennis Eisinger. In Los Angeles, Joel Kotkin of NewGeography.com. And in Boston, Life Thompson, CEO of Mortgage Master. And it is to Life who I want to turn first because, Life, you had a pretty good year giving out mortgages, didn't you?
That is correct. We're finishing 03. We're finishing 08, the best year since 03. We're going to be up, depending on the next 45 days, about 35–40% over last year. And the bottom line is about the same. We've hired a lot of good people. Things are, we're not breaking records, but things are good. People are buying homes.
Life, you say, and I've talked to you before, you say perception is everything. And frankly, 93% of Americans, we've been focused on the foreclosure, but 93% of Americans are paying their mortgages on time. What percent of your clientele, the people you've given mortgages to, are paying on time?
I think it's 99.6.
99.6 are paying on time. Unbelievable. Well, Dennis Eisinger, let me ask you, because of perception that there's so many foreclosures, I'm wondering if there have been any sort of perverse consequences of what's been going on where you actually have people defaulting on mortgages just so that they qualify for some special reduction of rates by the government.
Yeah, the picture in Florida certainly is not nearly as rosy as it may be apparently in other parts of the country. And down here we have buyers, borrowers doing all kinds of things, some voluntary, some involuntary, relative to financing.
Well, Joel, let's talk about the regionality of America, because we are a very different, diverse country, and you can't say America is doing this right now, because it really depends which part of America you're in. What percent of America do you think is really struggling with this foreclosure crisis?
Well, I think the worst parts are probably about 20–30%. Here in Southern California, certainly one, Arizona, Nevada. But there are large parts of the middle part of the country. My partners in NewGeography.com are in North Dakota, and they say, the mortgage crisis. And they say, what mortgage crisis? Small banks in the large parts of the Great Plains, some parts of the South, are holding up pretty well. The markets are holding up reasonably well. Prices aren't jumping anywhere, but they're not dropping dramatically. So it really is a question of where in the country you are.
So, well, Dani Babb, I had you on earlier, and you said that actually the numbers that we came out today could be a good sign, as bad as they are. Why?
Yeah, they're fantastic, and the lower it goes, the better. We want new housing starts to drop so that the inventory begins to drop. We're seeing a decline.
In other words, we won't have new houses built until we get rid of the inventory that exists.
But let's get rid of the stuff that's out there. We've got builders doing, for example, lease to owns right now. They're just trying to get rid of this inventory. So if we started at 11 months of inventory, and the norm is 5.5 to 6, at the beginning of the year, and we're down to 9.5, the less builders are building, that's a very good thing. When that number is at 0, bad for the builders, good for America.
Well, Life, what are the kind of houses that you are so successful in selling right now? Are they new construction houses, or are they already constructed houses?
There's less new construction in the Northeast than probably the rest of the country. What we're seeing the most of right now is first-time buyers out there kicking some tires. And they're taking their time, but eventually typically buying a home after looking at a couple of them, or maybe, maybe more than a couple.
And how difficult, Life, is it for them to get mortgages, and what kind of mortgages are they getting?
There's still money available out there. As long as you have a credit score, hopefully starting with a 6 or a 7, you can always qualify for an FHA loan, as long as you don't spend more than about 45% of your total income towards your housing expense. 2 good incomes typically qualify for a home now in many of the areas that we're in. That's the bread and butter, for us right now.
And what is the down payment that you require, Life?
No different than anybody else. On an FHA loan, you can get in with about 3% down. If you don't want to go the FHA route, you need 5% down. And I think that's a very fair number.
Well, Dennis, what about your situation, Miami? It's Miami where you see just one construction site after another that's half completed. Are they getting completed, or are they still in a standstill?
Now you see bulldozers in the air, skyscrapers, and incomplete projects. Particularly the luxury condominium market along the beach area is terribly hit, and it's going to take many, many years, unfortunately, until that inventory seems to dissipate. The other problem in Florida we have, one of the other members here was just talking about the default rate and it being not particularly high in other parts of the country. Down here in South Florida and the whole state, about 60% of housing is also associated with community associations where there's a mandatory condominium or homeowner association. So even though you have, in a particular community, you might have 30 or 40% of the people who are defaulting on their mortgages, that directly affects the other 60 or 70% of the people living in that community, because then they end up picking up the shortfall on assessments, the living assessments for that particular community regime, even though they may be current with their particular mortgage.
Joe Cocken, what I love about your economic research is you know the American character and you factor it into it. You don't just do these clinical number calculations. We are a mobile population. That's sort of one of the defining characteristics of Americans is we feel comfortable moving around. We may not like to at times, but we know how to do it and we can do it. Is there a lot of migration as a result of housing problems?
Well, there's been some slowdown in migration because people can't sell their homes. But what I am seeing is the possibility that is emerging for younger people, for immigrants to buy houses in markets such as Southern California, where there's been no opportunity to buy because it's been too expensive.
So let me just stop you there. That could actually be a very good thing, because one of the problems with these communities is they've lacked, when housing prices were so high, the vitality that you get when you have new and maybe not as rich people moving in, right?
Well, you have that, and also one of the things is a lot of cities have been building this high-end luxury housing, and the demand was really not fundamentally there. What's going to go first, I think, in the next few months is affordable single-family homes for families. And the more families that can get into a home, that can afford a home, the better we're going to be long-term. You're going to see a lot of change. And I think in many parts of the country, you're going to finally see the breaking down of these affordability barriers, so that in places like Southern California, parts of the Northeast, there are going to be opportunities for young people to get into the market, and that's a very healthy thing.
Danny, you agree?
Yeah, and also for boomers. We know that about 50% of boomers have at least 50% of equity in their homes or own their homes outright. These people, if they want to move to the Sunbelt states, are going to have a much greater opportunity to do so. They could rent out their home or hold it for a while, ride out the market, and buy something else.
Why do you think it is that the boomers have actually paid off their debts?
Well, the boomers got in often at a time when they had a higher down payment. They didn't have all these crazy types of mortgages. They weren't going negative amortization on their loans, going upside down essentially. And they bought a while ago when there was still some value, so they still have equity.
Life, have you noticed that there are a number of the people who have bought your houses who actually have paid off their mortgages early?
Yeah, there's about 25, 30 million homes across America with no mortgages out of, I think there's a housing stock of 85, 90 million. So it's probably about a third that has no mortgage.
Dennis, is all this talk, this rosy talk, making you feel even more glum about the situation in Florida?
Yeah, well, the one thing we do have going for us down here is a lot of housing money does come in from South America, Europe, and other parts of the world. So as the prices decline, I think that will be the saving grace for this state, that there will ultimately be stability because of foreign money in housing.
Although the decline in prices may not be able to keep up with the revaluation of the dollar, which makes it even more expensive for foreigners to buy over here. Finally, to you, Joe Cocken, what do you think the future is? I mean, we saw housing come up, what, about 40–50% over the past, since the change of the millennium. It had to come down. Do we have to get back to the levels that it was, say, in 2000 before we're on solid footing?
I think it really depends on each market, how inflated the markets were. But if I can take the experience of Southern California as an example, we went through a huge decline in the early parts of the 90s with the defense cutbacks and the riots, earthquakes, whatever you want to add. You know, we certainly had it all. Prices went down, and then they stayed relatively stable for about 7 or 8 years. I think that's the optimal situation. A little bit more of a drop, and then a kind of steady state situation. Let people's incomes get up so that they can afford things. Let's keep the price of housing sort of at a steady state for the next 5, 6 years and let the American economy recover so that people can actually afford to buy into these homes.
Wow.
I don't think having a higher prices in the near future would be healthy at all.
Right. Okay. We saw both the housing prices and the automotive crisis all in one night of Scoreboard. Joel Cocken, Dani Babb, Dennis Eisinger, and Life Thomas. Thank you for Life Thompson. Excuse me, Life. Good to see you all. Coming up on deck, more on the auto industry, this time with a look ahead to 09. Carla does Letterman. Time for Buy, Sell, or Hold. We take the names and stories in the news, treat them as if they're stocks. Would you buy them, sell them, or hold them? France's First Lady, Carla Bruni, stopped in to visit David Letterman. There she is, and to pitch her new CD. She's got one. She told the audience how she met her husband, President Nicolas Sarkozy, at a dinner party, and she also said France was excited about President-elect Barack Obama. Carla Bruni, buy, sell, or hold. Dani Babb.
Well, I actually like it when people who are in the spotlight share a little bit more about their personal life, so I will say
she's a buy. Yep.
That was some pantsuit. I'm talking about Letterman, of course.
Oh, Jack is a buy,
I
right?
thought you were going another direction. Look, France clearly has a glamorous first lady. We've got a glamorous first lady coming in.
That's true.
Good for both countries.
I think we're all going buy on this one. What does Scoreboard say? Scoreboard calls Carla a buy. It is unanimous. Well, Britney Spears, very different kind of woman, says the struggle to get her life in order is like a jail sentence. Only, quote, when you go to jail, you know you'll eventually get out, but this is never ending. In an MTV documentary, she also says, looking back at the last few tumultuous years, I look back, I'm a smart person, like, what the hell was I thinking? Britney Spears, Dani Babb, what do you say?
I'm not so sure about the smart person, but I have to say, love the new music. It's a buy.
Oh, all right, one buy, Jack.
I will shed a tear for her because I'll be drunk and crying over my 401k statement anyway later tonight. So
A hold. What do you say?
Look, I have a soft spot for Britney. I know if I keep buying, eventually the comeback will happen.
I don't have a soft spot for her, but I'm hoping her the best because you got to be charitable towards a person who's been through a lot. She is a buy. It just shows fame and fortune doesn't solve everything. Well, the NFL has given Adam Pac-Man Jones yet another chance. Back-to-back, Pac-Man and Britney. There's something going on here. The suspended Dallas Cowboys cornerback has been reinstated by Commissioner Roger Goodell, although he will not play again until December 7th. Pac-Man was suspended, you may remember, October 14th after getting into a sort of alcohol-related scuffle. He missed the entire 2007 season because of other legal troubles. The NFL reinstating Pac-Man, the decision to reinstate him. What do you think? Dani?
Sell.
Sell the decision. Yeah? What do you say, Jack?
I don't really. Did he do something really heinous? I'm going to give him a buy unless it was real. I mean, a little fighting. He's a football player, right?
Yeah, that's true. He is.
I want to be consistent in my buying and selling and holding here. So if I'm pulling for a Britney comeback, I got
to pull, but I don't know. Pac-Man, he's been through a lot. Sell from an Asman. Scoreboard says Pac-Man is a sell. Well, baseball was eliminated as an Olympic sport. How about pole dancing? Pole dancing as a replacement. A group of women say pole fitness, is what they call it, is a big-time sport and should be a competition in the Olympics. Those responsible for the internet petition say pole fitness is actually like rock climbing. Pole dancing in the Olympics. Dani, buy, sell, or hold?
This is tough stuff. Okay?
Holy mackerel, put it up a little bit here.
I'm not saying that I know from personal experience, but it is really, really a workout. So it's a buy.
All right. What do you say, Jack?
I can just picture the Russian judge giving 2 singles. Hey, by the way, I don't want to embarrass anyone, but Rod was all-county pole dance champ back in high school.
No,
and we're going to go to a side of that now. Seems like a logical argument to me.
I don't know, gang.
Oh, come on.
You gotta, look, if you're going to kick out baseball, you got to kick out pole dancing. We got to be consistent.
It's America's
about this.
new pastime.
Scoreboard. What does Scoreboard say? Scoreboard says pole dancing is a buy. Agree with all of you guys. Okay. Well, here we go. A bailout for the auto industry. Yeah, that's the guy that's making a score on this.
He's a big fan.
First to the panel, then to you folks. Dani, bailing out.
Not like bailouts at all. It is bad news. Let them go for bankruptcy and start over again.
A sell. Jack?
Oh, no. Bad idea.
A sell. Rod?
It's definitely not a good idea, but I do not know what's going to happen. Are you going to let these companies literally fall off the face of the earth?
Well,
I don't know.
If they'd help, fine, but I don't think they're going to. Now, we should mention again, late breaking news, Senator Harry Reid said there's not going to be a vote on this, at least until Obama is inaugurated. At home, 87% of you agreed that it's a sell. 9% voted buy, and 4% voted hold. So we know where you guys stand. Coming up on deck, can we please